Welcome to the Recover You podcast. I'm Kylene.
And I'm Patrick.
We are a couple in recovery
From sex addiction
and betrayal trauma. Together, we share our story to encourage you on your journey. It's here that we talk about sex addiction, betrayal trauma, mental, emotional, and physical health, faith, and anything and everything needed to recover you to your most authentic self that God created you to be. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Recover You. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, you and everyone.
Welcome back. Happy Wednesday for those of you who listen on the actual day.
For those of you who might be listening on the day we record it, happy Friday.
That's not possible. Not possible.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yes.
Today, we are going to answer a listener's question that has been submitted. So I will read the question and we will discuss. But before we do that, I'm so excited to announce that www.recoveryoucoaching.com is finally up and ready to be looked at.
Ta-da!
The website is live. More than the website being live, the What's Next course is also finally up and available. That's sort of in tandem with the website. So that is available. We will do like a whole episode about the What's Next course coming soon. But basically, it is for you if you have not been through a full therapeutic disclosure yet. And it is designed and created to save you time and money because we always recommend that you work with professionals one-on-one. And we realize that that is an expensive process. And so the What's Next course is designed to give you a ton of information and education around this process while you work with someone. But maybe that means that because you're getting so much of the basic education that, let's say you still can go to your therapist 4 times a week. Great. Maybe you can do some deeper emotional work together there. Or maybe this allows you to see your therapist once a month because you're getting so much of the education and so many of your questions answered in the course itself. And then you can work with your therapist to work on specific goals that you have, whether it be moving towards the disclosure or processing different things. So that's the idea. It is packed, and I mean packed with information, and I'm so proud of it. So I'm excited to finally say you can go check it out in the show notes.
It's got fantastic pictures.
Because it's on the website. Yeah, it's very beautiful. My web designer did an amazing job. She created, everything she does is absolutely beautiful. And you'll see her, if you scroll down to the bottom of the website, you'll see her name and her business. So if you're interested in working with her, if anybody needs a website, she's incredible.
Nice. What was that website again?
Our website, my website.
Your website.
www.recoveryoucoaching.com. You like university, yes.
Okay, cool.
If people are listening to the podcast, so I feel like they know
I
that.
know, but you never know.
Yes.
Yeah.
You, the letter U, like university, and that link, of course, will be in the show notes. So
Nice.
Yay,
Nice.
so excited.
Congratulations.
It's been a long time. It took a long time to make the website. It took a long time to get here, coaching people for the past several years, and to be at the place where I'm like, okay, it's probably time that I have a website that people, like, if somebody's like, hey, what do you do? Now I can go, hey, here's my website. So that's very, very nice.
Yeah.
And then it took several months working with the web designer. And she's like so much more than a designer. Well, first of all, she's a friend. And she's an incredible graphic design artist. So she created all my logos. And she's an incredible photographer. So she took all the photos that are on the website. And she's an incredible web designer. And so her business has really grown to incorporate like all of these skills that she has. And it just makes it such a cool process to create together and to communicate sort of what it is that you want to communicate in one place. So it was, it's been a long time coming. So I'm just sorry if I'm talking about it too long, but I'm very excited about it. It was a lot of work. So, yay. Okay.
Cool.
Ready for the question?
I am.
All right. Next part of the episode. Here we go. This is a question that someone submitted specifically saying, hey, can you and Patrick address this on the podcast sometime? Yes, we can. And here it is.
Sometime has arrived.
Sometime has arrived. It's today. All right, here's the question. What can you expect for other behavioral changes from the addict once in recovery? such as the self-righteousness, critical, and demeaning behaviors we've experienced just on the day-to-day from our partner in the past. I realize these selfish behaviors are so related to their shame and traumas that can we expect these behaviors to change in true recovery? Essentially, so many of the negative and hurtful behaviors that are not exactly related to acting out, but are likely cover-up and related to the negative core beliefs. I'm really struggling to convince myself these other behaviors my partner treated me with that I was not okay with will also change with recovery. As I have now learned to set more boundaries. She's worried that they won't change with recovery, as she's now learned to set more boundaries regarding not being okay being spoken to or treated in these ways anymore. I wouldn't want to work at reconciliation if I'd still be treated in these ways. So boiling that down, basically the question is, my partner is an addict. Plus, he's not very nice to me. Can I expect him to be nicer to me as a natural outcome of the recovery journey?
Wow, that's like there could be multiple parts to that answer. So
yes.
So okay. So I've said on here before, and we've talked about this, that when you fully heal, you develop greater empathy. So greater empathy means you really kind of look at how you interact with those around you and whether you're harmful and whether you say something bad or hurtful. You don't always get it right, but you apologize and you grow and all of those things. So I think recovery also, like as we talked about last week, is much more than just not doing the behavior. It's growing into the ability to sustain relationships in a positive way. I don't know, let's just take anger, for example. Outward displays of anger means that there's still something that hasn't been resolved. That's usually, what it is. People can get angry, but, what's the reaction after anger? You know what I mean? And what is the reaction, or what is the behavior like in the anger moment? I know when I'm angry, or if I get angry, I really don't get angry anymore, oddly enough. But if I'm angry, I get quiet, right? And part of it is because I've always kind of been this way. I've never wanted to say anything that was hurtful, right? And so I didn't trust my anger emotions. So the way I controlled it was like to get quiet, So I guess behavior should change. They should change. Don't you feel the same way? I mean, as you move through healing, it should change. And
so let's highlight maybe some of the specifics here, because these are really strong words, I feel like, that were used. So self-righteous, critical, and demeaning. Those are very strong words. So I feel like that's different than somebody having a bad day and yelling.
Right.
And then apologizing and taking responsibility after, right? So self-righteous would indicate I'm not owning my bad behaviors.
Yep, lack of accountability and responsibility.
I can't be wrong. I can't be held accountable. I think I'm smarter or better, or that's kind of what self-righteous indicates. Like I'm holier than thou, or I'm better than you, or I'm smarter than you, or something like that, right? Yeah. Critical, so that's putting down the partner. So putting down the person that you've already hurt. Saying things that are not nice, or picking apart. Well, a lot of times how that'll show up, I think, is if a partner tries to set a boundary and then the addict tries to turn it around and go, well, but you have this behavior, or, you do da 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 da. So again, those two I think are really combined. Like self-righteous and critical would be very combined of, well, I'm not responsible for everything, and I can't be the only person that's wrong in this relationship. Absolutely, you 100% can when it comes to betrayal behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Yeah. And if this is a recurring pattern, like the self-righteousness and the critical and that kind of stuff, it is separate from addiction. Let me say this in a couple different ways. It is and it is not. The same. I think the person that created the question brought up a really good point, which is, yes, we understand and can have compassion and empathy on the fact that these are very rooted in the same underlying core wounds. That is so totally true. But here is one thing that I think is very different. Addiction is typically kept in secret because somebody feels ashamed about it. Some part of them knows that it's wrong, right? But if you have these ongoing, really unkind behaviors from your partner that has been a public pattern for a long time, public is different than secret. Secret is like, I'm hiding this. Public is, you just have to deal with this. This is who I am kind of mentality.
Right.
That is a little bit different, especially if they're not turning around, taking responsibility, apologizing, and then seeing improved behavior consistently over time. So I think those are two totally different things, right? So they're both connected to the same wounding, but I want to say anyone that recovers, like actually does the true recovery work, 100 million %, you will see changes in these other areas because it will spill over. My concern would be recovery requires several things. Recovery from anything, anger problems, self-righteousness, being critical, addiction, anything that we want to work on, changing any behavior requires the individual realizing that it's wrong, which that would be a question for me. If this is a recurring pattern that is separate from the addiction, that is outside of the addiction, and it's just something this person has been doing for decades and feels fine with it, maybe doesn't notice that it's a problem, doesn't feel like it's a problem for whatever reason. They're just cool acting like this. So that would be problematic if they don't think it's wrong. So to change, you have to know that what you're doing is wrong. You have to want to then change it. You have to be motivated internally to change it. And then you have to use the tools and resources offered to you to do so, which, to answer the question, yes, the recovery resources can 100% help somebody, but they have to recognize that what they're doing is wrong, want to change it, and then apply the resources to that thing. I think that's really important because I do think some people go through the world, and again, I'm going to split this into two areas. Some people can have these, can be oblivious to their behavior, and other people know what they're doing and they're doing it on purpose. Right. So I think that's maybe like an intuition question for the betrayed partner. Is this person manipulative? They're doing it on purpose. They know that they're doing it. And you don't really see like remorse because of the self-righteousness and the critical and the demeaning and that kind of thing. Like those, I don't know what the answer to this would be, but like I would wonder if that person is a little bit more manipulative and there's a little bit of like intentionality and an idea and a goal to control there. Yeah. And that's super problematic. Then there are other people that I think do or can fall into the camp of really actually being so totally oblivious and unaware of how they impact somebody else. And I think with these types of behaviors, that would be a little more rare. But either way, let's say someone is completely oblivious. If they're a kind-hearted person, when you set a boundary, which it sounds like she has done and is communicating, then a healthy response would be like, oh my gosh, like I did not realize that's how that made you feel, and I will work on it. And then if it's true remorse, you will see change. The behavior will change. And I don't mean like in 6 months. I mean like you'll start seeing it move through the 6 months consistently, get better. Right. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like the difference between...
No, it really does, because if you... that's why I feel like it's always a little bit about the reaction when somebody is called on something. So you come across self-righteous, you're in a family dinner, your spouse is being self-righteous to you. So you call them on it the next day. They're defiant, they don't care, they don't change, versus, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. It doesn't mean that they won't possibly be self-righteous again, but they're working on it. I mean, let's say it's just like, to your point, it's been a pattern for decades or whatever, and they're just in this patterning, like you said, oblivious to it. Maybe they saw their parents do it or whatever, and so it's just one of those things.
A very mild example of this would be, I'll take myself as an example. When I got together with you and Keegan, you very quickly pointed out that my intensity comes off as yelling. And sometimes I'm just like a loud, passionate person. And I was like, I'm not yelling. What are you talking about? But because I have like a higher pitched voice, and if I get really passionate about something, it sounds like I'm yelling, even though I'm like really just like really intense. Like this is a serious thing and I'm talking about. I'm not mad at you, right? But it sounds like I'm mad. And you pointed that out to me, that on the outside, like that's how it sounded. And that would be a little bit of like the oblivious, right? But if it's a problem and it's pointed out and the problem is hurting someone else, like the word that concerns me is critical and demeaning. Well, all of them concern me. They're all not good. But like specifically I feel like the word demeaning is a really, really strong word.
Oh, yeah.
That feels to me like that means that there is like a level of disrespect there of like putting somebody down and I have to control you. And that word demeaning really, because that to me makes me feel like I relate the word demeaning to treating someone in an inhumane way. And I don't, perhaps the person writing it would not register those two together per se. So maybe this is just my interpretation. But when I hear demeaning, I sort of also hear like inhumane, like you're lesser than me. You're not as, you're not equal to me. You're not as good as me. And therefore I can treat you how I want. So that word really, really concerns me. So I think it's, if somebody is truly oblivious, but they have a kind heart, they're going to receive feedback and go, apologize, first of all, and then work really hard to change their behavior. But if somebody really doesn't care or doesn't think that what they're doing is wrong and thinks you're wrong, they're going to push back on it.
Yeah. Well, and that goes to the heart of how much recovery are they doing? Maybe they've just stopped the behavior and that's it. And they really need to I think one of the classic examples is, we're talking about this again. You always bring this up again. Are we always going to talk about this for the rest of our relationship? This is, and then
yes,
maybe
we're going to talk about it until
call you a name or something
we don't.
like that. Right. And so, but there's,
oh yeah, name calling.
Yeah,
that's a no-fly zone.
Right.
Sorry, just saying.
You okay over there?
Yeah, you just brought a totally different topic into it. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely not.
Well, I mean, demeaning can have a very broad thing. I was thinking,
right, and that could absolutely fit into that.
It could be like, are you always going to bring this up? And that can come across as very demeaning,
condescending,
and self-righteous. I've healed. Why are you? You know what I mean? So like if you...
Well, not even I've healed. To your point, I'm not doing the behavior. What's the problem?
Right.
So demeaning could just mean I'm diminishing your feelings about it. Right? So it's a broad spectrum. Like I kind of went to the dramatic end, but it could also just mean like I'm disrespecting the level that this has hit you.
Yeah.
I'm not valuing your feelings about it. Right.
Yeah. It's a real challenge because, there are times especially, and I know there were times it caught me off guard, and I think we would have this conversation. I hope I was never demeaning to you, but I think there were a couple times when I was at a real high, and then you would kind of come in at a low, and we had been through, it wasn't like 3 months after discovery, it was like a year and a half, 2 years, and it would catch me off guard. So I remember feeling caught off guard.
What would catch you off guard?
Like if we're having, we've had a
if I bring something up.
We've had a great month, you know what I mean? Like things are great. I'm excited to come home. Like it would almost be like, we've had a great month. I'm driving home. I'm excited. I walk in and you hit me with a question. And I'm like, whoa, so like the juxtaposition from where I was and so that always, it always rattled me a little bit. And I had to kind of pause a little bit because I wasn't quite ready. But then I was able to kind of calm myself down and kind of be like, oh, okay, what's going on?
Right, because
what do you need?
That little juxtaposition that you were just saying of like, oh, everything's fine, and then it's not. I'm like, that's like little tiny taste of discovery for us. Oh. Like we have a question. I'm so sorry that shook your happy little world for today. Because you shook my world forever.
Is that demeaning?
Yeah.
No, but
I'm just saying, like when you said that, the way you described it, I was like, actually, that's a really good parallel.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's part of what the addict can learn is they have these little slices of the cake that they handed to us in a day.
Right.
Like that's actually like I was being silly about it, but it's true.
Yeah.
And that's how it feels. And they need to learn how to eat the cake.
Yeah.
Because we were force fed.
Right.
And so it will come back at these various times, like you were saying, like everything's fine. And then what? Maybe it's a specific day. Maybe you had a dream.
Right.
Maybe a text message comes through on the phone and it's not even anything. It could be a spam text message and then that triggered you because you saw another one come through on the phone. It could be so many things.
Yeah.
So if someone doesn't have compassion for that part of your reality, red flag.
Right. Well, and 100% of the time you have a choice as the addict, as a recovering addict. You can choose to be unkind again, or you can say, hey, I'm sorry that I didn't meet you right there. I was just taken off guard a little bit. And, what do you need? Because, we all make mistakes. There are honest mistakes where you weren't prepared for something emotionally and it hit you and it broadsided you a little bit, and maybe not to the degree of betrayal.
Good job. No, I hear you. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But it's just sometimes these can take you unawares and you may not have a great response in that. but you always have the chance, the opportunity to go, hey, I'm sorry. I actually.
That's the thing. Rupture without repair is the destruction.
Right.
It's if you rupture and you have let's call it a human moment. And yes, there should be limits to how far your human moment goes, but let's just call it a human moment for now. Let's say someone has a human moment. They're angry, they yell, they do something maybe that's, big expression of some kind. Everybody to some extent, has the right to feel what they're feeling in that moment, whatever it might be. There, of course, are limits on how it's expressed, but everybody has the right to feel how they're feeling on both sides. But the important thing is, what do you do after that? So first of all, there's a limit. There are lines that you should not cross. So let's not cross those. But even if you don't cross those lines, and 1,000,000% if you do, you have to be able to self-reflect and go, if somebody calls you on it, or even if they don't call you on it, you should be able to come and go, I lost my temper there, or I felt really agitated and I said something in the moment that is not true, and I was saying it out of my pain, and I want to make sure that you know that is not how I feel about you, and I'm so sorry, and that you have to have this part, and I'm going to talk to my therapist or my group or whatever. I'm going to do XYZ so that I can maybe work on, if I get agitated like that again, not doing this again.
Right.
That is the key. And so someone has to, again, kind of going back to those three things, they have to recognize that what they did was wrong, that it was mean, that it was not nice, or that you're not, going to tolerate it. And two, they have to want to change that. Because if somebody does not recognize that something is bad behavior, or they just aren't interested in changing it, then it doesn't matter how much stuff they're going to be exposed to, they won't fix it.
Right.
But if somebody really wants to, they could be exposed to very minimal support and fix it and resolve the issue. It really is a combination of the self-reflection and the desired heart change, I think.
Yeah. I think about this question, and it was this book. I remember reading this book within the first 6 months of recovery, and it had the story about the guy who lied. And so the story was, and it stayed with me, and I thought about it all through recovery, and you know what I mean? And it's a great story. So basically, the addict has been discovered. He's moving through the process. He's no longer doing the behavior, but he's working on lying, and because he continues to lie. And basically, they're a year on, and the wife comes home, asks him if he took out the trash. He says, yeah, I took out the trash. So she goes to the bedroom to brush her teeth for a night. I guess the bedroom over the sink, there's a window. She looks out, he's taking out the trash. She divorced him.
Yeah.
And part of it was he wasn't doing the behavior anymore, but she was like, I can't live with a guy who continues to lie to me.
Yep.
And so, and it wasn't, was it a lie that, you could argue had a huge consequence? As far
divorce,
as,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it did. But like as far as the trash going out earlier or later, well, of course not.
It's not about the thing.
That's right.
It's about the lie.
Yeah. And I remember.
How hard would it be to say, oh, I forgot. Let me go do it right now.
That's right. And so like, what it showed her was she's not even important enough to tell the truth when it comes to trash. You know what I mean? And so I remember reading that early on.
In the addict's mind, this isn't important. This isn't important enough for me to tell the truth on because I have to defend myself. So the defense is more important than the trash. Mm-hmm. But the outcome of that is that she feels disrespected.
That's right.
And so it is bigger than the truth is always more important than whatever you're trying to cover up. Right, it doesn't even matter.
Well, in that example
there's
too.
There's no situation where the truth is not the better choice.
In that example, if he's willing to lie to me about something as low consequential as trash,
that's it.
What is he willing to lie to me about
For sure.
when he's trying to cover? You know what I mean? So it's...
Yeah, how could you trust somebody saying that, oh yeah, I haven't relapsed, if they're lying to you about washing the dishes?
Yeah.
If they're lying to you about taking the trash out? If they're lying to you about what time they got to work? Like, truth is in the details.
I remember,
trust is in the details.
There was I was cooking, I had read that early on, and I was cooking it probably about year 2 or something, and I was doing something, and you asked me if I had washed a particular vegetable. And at I think
it was potatoes or something. I said, did you wash the potatoes?
And I was like, yeah. And then like it hit me like a day later that I hadn't. And
So you weren't lying in the moment.
I wasn't lying in the moment because I had washed a bunch of vegetables. And then so I was like, hey, I didn't wash those potatoes.
He came back to me like 48 hours later.
Yeah.
It was like, I need you to know that I remembered that I did not actually wash the potatoes.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
So, that's the thing though. Like when people say, how do you know that he's not still doing it? Or like, how can you trust again? It's things like that. And I think sometimes the addicts don't understand, like you have to get so beyond honest in every aspect of your life to rebuild trust after something like this. Down to, I forgot to wash the potatoes. I wasn't lying to you in the moment, but I remembered later it hit me. I didn't. I washed all these other things and it was like an auto response that I washed the potatoes, but I want you to trust me. And so I needed, like, it's not a big deal, but I need you to know, like, I didn't wash the potatoes. I want to tell you the truth. Right.
Yeah. We didn't even throw that food out.
I think it's probably cooked.
Yeah. It was fine.
Well, maybe with a little extra dirt. Good for your microbiome.
That's right.
I think that's like the key. It's the key of how do you rebuild trust? It is honesty. And how do you know somebody's being honest? It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not a weekly check-in saying, oh, I didn't relapse. Like, yes, we need that. It's important to have that. But it's not that builds trust. It's that plus things like the potatoes, things like the trash. It's those common everyday seemingly small things, right? That make a difference and help me go, I know that you're telling the truth. I know that you wouldn't hide something from me. When somebody starts to tell you things that would make them look better if they didn't tell you, that's when you start believing them, that they're actually telling you the truth and not hiding things from you.
Yeah. I think there's, in some of these behaviors, there is a progression that can happen. So, and I don't know if this is a great example, but I think about like outbursts of anger. So in a healing process, maybe the starting point is outbursts of anger. Maybe the second part of that is expressing anger but calmly. And then maybe the third part of that is knowing they're angry, but they don't say anything, but they leave. And then the next part is they come back and they say, hey, I'm sorry, I was angry. Maybe the fourth part is like they're not able to be angry. They're starting to regulate. You know what I mean? So like, I think if you... I
have seen that, by the way, with anger when there's two components. When the betrayed partner like clarifies that is a very clear boundary and they expect change in that area and there's a really strong boundary there. And you have somebody that actually is like, you're right. This is bad behavior, and maybe the boundary is motivational to them in some way, or the boundary is motivational to them in some way. But I have seen situations where like anger specifically, because that tends to be a thing that sometimes guys will struggle with because it's like, I don't know. I don't know why anger is like a thing that guys struggle with.
I kind of look at sometimes anger
a defense
like
mechanism.
Well, not only that, it's usually.
But I have seen it improve. Is what I was trying to say.
Right, it's covering up fear, but also too, if the coping mechanism is gone, we don't know how they're going to react right away. And so my point is that the progression of the behavior should be less and less frequent, and maybe they change from high intensity and they're transitioning towards low intensity. And so
it's totally okay, by the way, to stay communicating very clearly through that process. You can acknowledge the progress and still share we're not at the finish line here in terms of where we need to end up.
Yeah.
So if it's the third step that you mentioned was like angry and left, right? Yeah, great. He's self-regulating more so that he's not having an outburst and saying things that he regrets or that, will cross a line that has been set, right? Great. And that feels to the betrayed partner still maybe in the avoidant category because you can't sit there and self-regulate with me in a conversation, right? So that's okay to acknowledge, hey, this is better than where we were, and I appreciate the work you're doing, and this is like, I want to acknowledge this is progress. And it's not the end of the road. Like, we need to get to a point where we can sit together, have activated emotions, and not cross these lines.
Right, yeah. So I think as you watch that progression, that will give you the information that you need to say, do I extend it another 6 months? Do I, like whatever that is. And I think that's the other thing is you're never locked in, right? You're never locked into a choice. So if you say at the moment of discovery and then there's these anger outbursts that he's got 1 year But if you see growth in that 1 year, but maybe there's still an anger outburst that's 2 months apart, you have the option to say, you know what, I've seen growth. So, or you could say, on the flip side, you could say, nope, sorry. You know what I mean? Even though there's been some growth, there's still anger outbursts. I gave him a year, I'm out. You know what I mean? So like the point is, like, you have the freedom to make whatever decision that you want to make relative to the behavior, which is probably a direct function of what you're willing to tolerate.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of times I will talk to clients in terms of, let's really define health. What does health look like to you? So when we're thinking about the future, getting so clear on what is it that we are wanting to work towards, because there can be situations where, let's say this is like a really bad problem. We can settle somewhere in the middle because it's so much improved. And so that's where it's like, let's get really clear on not just surviving, but what does thriving look like in a relationship? What does healthy emotional regulation look like? What does healthy communication between partners? What does healthy conflict look like? And let's aim towards that. And really getting a feel for, do I have a partner that wants to be on the same team working towards those goals? Right. Or are they kind of kicking and screaming the whole way, going like, why are you making me do this? Like, I'm fine the way I am. And you're like, well, it's not fine for me. So I think having, on the betrayed partner side, when we're thinking, okay, all of this is going on, what do I do? Our job is really to determine what it is that our goal is, to get really clear on that. And then the second thing is to make sure that that is very, very clearly communicated, of, what the goal is, what you will or will not tolerate, just to make sure, like, it sounds like in the particular example that was given, the question that we sort of jumped off of here, it sounds like in that particular instance, some boundaries have been communicated, it has been verbalized, right? So if there's a situation where you're dealing with something and you're sort of waiting in the background to see if it changes, but you haven't clearly communicated, hey, this is not acceptable for me long term, that would be the second thing, is I've decided this, and then the second piece would be communicating it, making sure they really, really know. And I think there's always a way to do that if you really do want to see that the relationship, like if you're really hoping that it's a possibility, and because most people really want to see their partner recover, not just to save the relationship, but because they know it's going to be a healthier life for them, right? They love their partner, and they really are like, otherwise they'd be out, right? Like, so there's a way, I think there's so many ways to communicate it. Like, I love you, I care about you, I'm not willing to tolerate this because it's bad, but I also think this would be so good for you. And the only reason I'm here right now is because I love you. But, I also love myself. I also care about my future. And these are the types of things that, I'm not willing to tolerate when I'm thinking about, being together in 10 years. This is on the table of not going to be there in 10 years.
Right. I was even thinking, I've heard betrayed spouses, and you've probably said something like this, maybe to a degree, but through the years, that when couples go through recovery, the phrase that will sometimes be used by the betrayed spouse is, I got my husband back. I got the man back, or that, the man back that I met, that I really fell in love with. Like, he came shining back through. And I think we've got to say this in an honest way. Do you look back to a point in your marriage where you liked being in that marriage? You know what I mean? Like you got to be honest about that. Has the relationship
ever had a point that you were like, no, we actually interact in a really healthy way that I really like?
That's right. And so, addiction does crazy things. I know for me, I was filled with despair. I was filled with conflict, and you know what I mean? And so that changed me, through the time frame. And so when all that went away too. And you were happy because you were like, I think you said it, you were like, I believe you can do this. And if you can do this, coupled with all the other great things you've done, I think we can have a great life. And it goes back to like how we started, and it was really wonderful and all that. So I think you got to be honest about that. Like, was it ever wonderful?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I think one of the things you're kind of hitting on that we've also mentioned before is hope has to be rooted in reality.
Yep.
So if you're going to hope that things can get better, it has to be rooted in something that is actually being demonstrated right now that is possible. Mm-hmm. So like they're self-reflecting. There's a little bit of progress on the trajectory. They are verbally acknowledging the behavior and saying that it's wrong and they want to change. And then you're seeing some sort of response and action associated with that. Because if If we're just saying, hey, we're just going to give it another 6 months, but the past 6 months, there's a lot of words but no action. Like, we don't have a lot to base our hope on for the next 6 months. We have to at least see some sort of action, some demonstrable, is that the right word? Demonstrable change that's saying, hey, like their heart is actually in this. They're not just doing it because they feel pressured by their partner or because they feel like they don't want to lose the relationship. They actually have internal motivation, and you've got to see something there that acknowledges that. I think is really, really important.
100%.
I think towards the end, there was a statement that was made. I wouldn't want to work at reconciliation if I'll still be treated in these ways. And I think that's the boundary, right? And so, again, making sure that if that's the boundary, that's being said out loud. Make sure your partner knows that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really, really important.
Yeah. You know, it makes me sad as you read that. I think one of the big problems in the addiction recovery side is there's a lack of full understanding of what this behavior has done to the spouse. And so because of that, there's this desire to equalize criticism. There's a desire to, before healing is, and it really breaks my heart because it just further traumatizes the betrayed spouse.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I've done all of this to you and it's horrible, but here's my laundry list of things that I'm not happy with. And at some point you want to get to a point where you're so healed, the both of you in the relationship and individually, that you can have this give and take and you can share with each other. But in a lot of cases, it's way too soon. So if that
requires a level of respect to be there.
That's right. Yeah.
And all trust and respect is gone after betrayal.
That's right.
So hopefully you respect the betrayed partner because they haven't, betrayed you. So hopefully there's influence there on that side from the betrayed partner to the addict. But the addict has zero influence.
Yeah.
Zero respect, zero influence. You have to earn that back.
Yeah.
And that takes time. And then when it's earned back, it's a bi-directional equal relationship again, where you sort of challenge each other and encourage each other and help each other and point out, hey, this didn't go really well. But in order to do that, you have to come from a healed place.
Yeah. Well, and you said it best, going through betrayal, it'll make you crazy. You know what I mean? You don't get sleep. You don't eat well. You don't, think well anymore. You get brain fog. You get all these things. And so for those of you on the addiction recovery side, remember all of that. Be kind, understand what you've done and the devastation that you've wrought on this person's emotional, psychological safety. I mean, and so don't come back and continue to pile on. That's just extremely unkind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so to summarize, I think the quote unquote answers, if you want to call it that, the discussion that we had today, one would be what you said, Patrick, which is sort of sit with yourself and get really honest about, has there been a point in this relationship where it did equal health and you felt seen and valued and respected and loved and prioritized? If you feel like that's capable, is there evidence that he's working towards that again in his recovery? Because ultimately, anytime we are working towards health, what are going to be the components of that we're working towards? Certainly the self-righteousness and criticism isn't it. It would be kind, empathetic talk where you feel seen in your pain and just as a human being, like that he values you for you beyond this recovery journey, beyond what you look like, beyond like he values you as a human being. He sees who you are, your heart, your personality, your desires in life, your dreams. Like he sees that and he acknowledges that and he respects that and values it and wants to support you in that, right? Those are the kinds of things that we're sort of thinking about. Like, did we feel that level of support in the relationship, and or are we seeing evidence that we can head towards that direction?
Right.
The short answer, I think, to this whole idea is that someone in deep recovery will have changed behavior in every area of their life.
Right.
There is no way that somebody can get into deep recovery and it's not going to spill out into these types of behaviors if that was a pattern for them. But someone in sobriety may not see any change in these areas at all. So the difference between sobriety and recovery, I think, is very important in instances like this. We have to remember that changing any behavior requires them to recognize that it's wrong, to acknowledge that it's wrong, to want to change it inside of themselves, separate from external pressure. Like they have to actually acknowledge and say, no, I don't want to be like this anymore. And they have to then act on and utilize the tools and resources offered to them. And then for the betrayed partner, we have to recognize what is it that we want. We have to verbalize our boundaries, and then we have to be really, really ready to take action on them. And then we sort of see, okay, I've said this, I've given you some time, and then I'm going to trust my intuition. And we look for that trajectory. We look for, is hope based in actionable, demonstrable behavior now? And are we on a trajectory that says, okay, I feel good about where this might go? I'm not making any guarantees right now, but I can keep going today. And those are some of the things I would think about in relation to behaviors that are not specifically related to the addiction itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else?
No. Good question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sending it in and for listening. And if anybody else would like to submit questions, we love to answer them. And obviously, we sort of try to answer them in a general capacity because we are not your individual coach. We're not your one-on-one therapist. And so if you are working with those practitioners, we encourage you to also bring these types of questions to them. But if you are a listener and you'd like to submit a question and just get our thoughts on it in a generalized way, please feel free to submit them. We really enjoy kind of having these types of episodes and making them more specific.
Right.
Thank you so much for listening. Definitely check out the new website,
which is
recoveryoucoaching.com, and check out the What's Next course. It's very cool. We will talk about it soon in an upcoming episode. Every day is a new opportunity to choose health and freedom. Make that choice today, and we'll see you next week. Woohoo! If you're listening to this, it means you've made it through an entire episode. Part of recovery is spending time engaging in healing and self-growth activities. We are thankful that you chose our podcast to be one of those activities today. Make sure you reward yourself for that accomplishment. If you've enjoyed this episode or this podcast, we would love to hear from you. Please take just a few moments to leave a rating and review, letting us know your experience with Recover You. We not only love hearing how these episodes are helpful, but ratings and reviews help others just like you who are searching for recovery information and support find the podcast too. We can't wait to hear from you. See you next week.